Hello and welcome to a Voices of the Vic podcast with me, Ben Aiton, and Mike Duffy. We are back after recharging our batteries for a couple of weeks to do a catch up with all the news that's broken through the international break. And we'll do a preview of the upcoming game against Hull City at the weekend at Vicarage Road on Sunday at 3 p.m. Firstly, Mike, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's been a while since we've done one of these. It certainly feels it anyway. So it's good to be back, and it's good to know that Watford are back as well on Sunday. I've not been watching lots of the World Cup. I think it's been a bit crap because of when it is. So I'll be glad that domestic football's back. But yeah, I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm all good. I'm looking forward to this weekend, getting domestic football back, like you say. It's difficult to get into this World Cup, isn't it? Obviously, we're enjoying the progress that we're seeing with England getting through to the next stage. We're in the quarterfinals of the World Cup now, but it's hard to get motivated for it. It's like if it was in the summer, beer gardens would be full, everyone would be out drinking, enjoying themselves, watching it, and now it's just like I'm just tucked up indoors, just watching it under maybe a blanket, watching England game, and it's like evening kickoff, 7 p.m. It feels a bit weird, and yeah, it's just hard to motivate yourself to actually enjoy this World Cup. But we certainly will enjoy it if England do end up bringing home the prize at the end of the tournament, which is, I don't know. Do you reckon it's likely, Mike? Obviously, let's talk about the World Cup very briefly before we jump on to all things Watford. Obviously, we've had a current Watford player represent their country over in Qatar in Ismail Assar, and unfortunately he got knocked out by England the other night in their 3-0 defeat. But Ismail Assar had an okay tournament, didn't he? He scored, he won a penalty and scored the winning penalty against Ecuador to help Senegal reach the last 16 of the World Cup. And he was involved in other bits and pieces as well. And he looked dangerous against England, especially in that first half. I think he had Carl Walker and Toast, and he really struggled to deal with him. How would you sum up Ismail Assar's performance in the World Cup? Do you think it's enough to maybe put himself into a shop window? Although Watford won't want to sell him in January, but maybe towards the end of the season, people will be like, okay, Sarr still got it, and we might approach him at the end of the season. Do you think he's maybe done enough to put his name back up there?
I think so. I think everyone's seen what a talented player he was. I mean, like I said at the start, I've not watched much of the World Cup. I did watch Senegal's first game against Netherlands, and I thought Sarr was absolutely brilliant. He was terrorising the guy down on the right hand side for for Netherlands. And like you said, he coolly slotted away that penalty the other day to put Senegal through to the last 16 against Ecuador, and it was a no-look penalty. And I just wish he could bloody do that for us. He can't seem to score penalties for us, but no, you know, I think he's definitely shown the world his capabilities and that he's still got it. I think there was no doubt that he'd still got it. It was just he'd been very inconsistent. Obviously, his injury last year sort of hampered his sort of performances a little bit, but we've seen him back to his best and back to the Ismail Assar that we all love. So hopefully we still get to keep him in January, but don't be surprised to see a few bids crop up here and there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. It's like, why can't he stick it in the back of the net from 12 yards for Watford? Maybe he should try this no look next time. But then again, I think I'd rather João Pedro standing over it after what he did last time against Red, and he actually slotted it away, which we really needed. Mike, also a guy who's I really didn't see this coming. 4 years ago, he left Watford in a move to Everton for a deal worth up to £50 million. 4 years later, he's wearing the number 9 shirt for Brazil, leading the line. It's Richarlison. Did you see this happening? Like, it's fantastic to see how well he's done and kicked on, and it's obviously Watford have highlighted that he's got a lot of potential, and that's what Watford do. They target these youngsters who have got a lot of expectations, and they're highly rated and got massive potential. But it just shows how good this network can be for the Potso's family, can't it, Mike? And are you surprised with how well Richarlison has done since leaving Watford? And did you ever imagine him to be leading the line for Brazil in the Qatar World Cup?
I never thought he'd be leading the line for Brazil in a World Cup. There was obviously talent there. I mean, I really don't like the guy. I know that there'll be people watching this thinking, "Oh, come on, like it's good and all this. It's a nice little story." But honestly, I really think he's an ignorant so and so. The way that he spat his dummy out the pram, when Marco Silva left, it was quite clear that he didn't give a toss about playing for Watford, or he just couldn't be asked, and obviously moved to Everton with Silva. I mean, it's great. It shows that the Potso network, scouting network, and that South American link that we have, it's showing that is such a good link to have. We've got that. It looks like we got that Mateus Martins coming in the summer, perhaps, or in January. I'm not quite sure. I'm getting the transfers mixed around here, but he's another one from Fluminense. Obviously, João Pedro, and like I've said various times on this podcast, I think João Pedro will go on to better Richarlison's career. I really didn't see him getting a move to Tottenham. Whether you class Tottenham as a big team or not, it is a step up from Everton, and it is that sort of team that you'd expect him to go to be playing European football. So, in that regard, it is quite nice to see that a player that was once gracing the field at Vicarage Road is now leading the line for probably, I would say, the tournament favourites left in the World Cup now. I think they'll go on and win it, Brazil. So it is weird to think that, we used to watch him week in, week out, and now he's sort of the main man for Brazil. But yeah, I really dislike Richarlison. I think he's a bit of a twat, to be honest. But hopefully it won't be too long. I think the next World Cup's in America. I may have got that wrong.
Yeah, North America and Canada, I think.
Yeah, so 2026. Hopefully, João Pedro, whether he's playing for us or not, he'll be the one leading the line for Brazil. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it anyway.
Yeah, João Pedro to wear the number 10 shirt for Brazil in 4 years' time in the next World Cup will be a sight. But all Watford fans believe he has got the potential to do and be better than Richarlison as well. Like we've all said, we can see that he's got more potential in him than what Richarlison did when he came to Watford. Don't get me wrong, Richarlison was class when he came into Watford, but his head went as soon as Silva went, and that's why Watford fans don't rate Richarlison in high regards like they would do with other past players. Peaches came up and said he had the potential to do whatever what he has done. And so in that sense, it didn't really surprise him. And he also agreed with Mike saying he's a petulant child at Watford, and after November, and did the same at Everton. So you just knew what Richarlison was going to do. And then Mike, he's got 3 goals already in the World Cup as well. That first goal he scored was absolutely unbelievable. I don't know if you've seen it. You've said you've not watched much of the World Cup. The way he controlled it and then did the scissor kick in the air, it was just absolute class. So hats off to him, and it's good to see him doing well. So Mike, just quickly before we move on to Watford stuff, you said that Brazil's probably your favourites now, Brazil to win the World Cup?
Yeah, I think Brazil are a total outfit. They look really, really good. I'm buzzing for Morocco as well, as I'm sure Imran Loser is. First time they've got that far in a World Cup, I think. I think Portugal's a bit of a stretch for them. And Argentina will easily beat Netherlands. I know Brendan usually watches and he's Dutch, so apologies, Brendan. I don't mean any disrespect. I just think Argentina are a really good outfit. But yeah, I think we'll probably see a Brazil-France World Cup final, and I think Brazil will win.
Must say as well, just quickly, I'm enjoying every second of Messi gracing that pitch still. He just shows that he is by far the best player in the world, better than Ronaldo. And I think the last few weeks has really shown that his stock's just gone downhill ever since that Piers Morgan interview, Mike. He's got sacked from Manchester United. He's been dropped by Portugal. He's been linked with a move to Saudi Arabia. How the mighty's fallen. Like, that wouldn't have happened to Messi because he's got the right mentality. Where Ronaldo it's just ego, isn't it? It's Ronaldo, 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 and he don't care about anything else apart from him. So I'm just enjoying watching him crumble a little bit. But Mike, let's talk about a Canadian international now. I don't know too much about him. You probably don't know too much about him as well. He's a young guy. So Watford have agreed terms with Canada international midfielder Ismail Kone. Kone has just returned from competing at the 22 World Cup and has signed a 4.5-year deal with Watford. He joins on an undisclosed fee and will actually officially join Watford on the 1st of January. I've seen figures circulating on social media, but the fee is in the region between 8 and 10 million euros. The highly rated 20-year-old featured in each of Canada's Group F matches against Belgium, Croatia, and Morocco, and has 9 international caps to his name. He signed for Montreal, who finished second in the 2022 MLS Eastern Conference and third overall, achieving a club record 20 wins. He was originally born in Ivory Coast. Kone moved to Canada age 7 and signed a professional contract with his hometown club Montreal in August 2021, making his debut in February 2022. He went on to play 32 times for Montreal, attracting interest from many European clubs before settling for a move at Vicarage Road. Mike, he made his professional debut in February. He went on to start for Canada in the World Cup in November. He signs for Watford in December. It's been a big few months for Ismail Kone, and it just shows that he's very highly rated, especially if big European clubs have been asked after him. Is this a decent move for Watford?
I mean, only time will tell. This could be as well one of the first signs of Ben Manga and his team getting, stuck into their jobs with in that new role, and hopefully, we're going to see a few more transfers like this where you don't really hear of them, and then they go on to do good things. I asked the Frankfurt fans in the Twitter comments of them releasing a statement about Ben Manga leaving. I just said, what can we expect? And I was outlined a few players bought for X amount and then sold for even bigger amounts. So who knows? This could be one of those players. But he, like you said, I can't say I've ever seen anything of him. Like I said, I've not watched much of the World Cup, but I'm sure that, the Potsos and Ben Manga, if he has had anything to say about this, I'm sure they've done their research and he's going to fit into the squad. And it's another young player, Ben. I think that's what we've, been screaming out for the last few years. We've obviously, it's been a while since we've had someone come through from the youth academy and make their mark on the first team. That's what Watford used to be about. But, whilst that's still not happening, it's good to see that we're buying young and hopefully, start, bringing these players' careers on and selling them on for the big bucks later on, which is what the Potsos do. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know much about him either. I think I've heard that he's potentially a number 8. He likes progressing up the pitch with the ball as well. He's got an eye for a pass as well. So only time will tell, but hopefully he hits the ground running and maybe comes in and takes KMB's place in the team, because I think Chowdhury's position's pretty much safe, isn't it, in that defensive holding position, and then it's just the positions in front of him. So I definitely maybe would swap KMB out and put in maybe Kone, but it's difficult. He's a young guy, he's coming into a new country, and it might take time for him to adjust. We've seen how Mario Gaspar struggled in the first few months coming over to England. He struggled to adapt to English football and get up to speed, and then he was taken out the firing zone, and he came back in recently and has improved massively. So maybe it might be time will tell with this signing. I don't think he's going to come in and be an instant starter where maybe we saw before when we've signed someone in January a couple of years ago, Felix Zinchenko. He came in and he went into the first team straight away, pretty much, didn't he, Mike? He maybe did a couple of bench appearances. I think his first debut was away to Manchester United in the Cup.
Yeah.
And then, he was thrown into it straight away. I don't think they're going to do that same approach with Kone, but it would be interesting to see. And it's reassuring, Mike. You've said about how we're getting younger players coming into the football club and we're picking up players with a lot of potential. It's reassuring being a Watford fan, seeing that we can attract these young players to the football club and they're not put off by the Watford merry-go-round of changing managers all the time. They're looking at Watford and thinking, Richarlison's gone there. He's gone on to move to Everton, to Spurs. Now he's playing in the World Cup for Brazil. They've probably seen the progress of João Pedro, another player who's joined from Fluminense, and they're thinking, well, he's really strongly developed his game as well. And there's more examples as well. And it's reassuring that they're not being put off by what's going on off the field at Watford and not being like, well, I'm not going to go there because the manager will chop and change every 6 months. That's refreshing for Watford fans, isn't it?
Absolutely. And hopefully they're looking at the bigger project. Watford is a team that sees themselves in the Premier League, which is mad to think that, considering what the club was like when I first started supporting it, to think that we almost feel like we should be in the Premier League is quite crazy, to be honest. But, it's that project. Obviously, being just outside of London will help as well. The attraction for foreign players to come over and be, near London is a bigger pull than most people would think. And, we do want to be playing in the Premier League. We want to be an established Premier League side. So I think there's a lot going for the club in regards of trying to sell it to a player. And like you said, if you're a young player, you've got plenty of examples of players that have come in and bettered their career. Yeah, exactly. So, we've there's plenty of examples of players that have come in and, done good for their career and maybe gone on to other clubs and, now playing at a decent level. And at the end of the day, it's a good club to come to if you're young and want to test yourself in, especially with this chap that's coming in. He's never played European football before. So it's a great, second tier of English football, really good level to test yourself at, and also a chance to be in the Premier League within a season. So I'm not surprised he's opted to join us, to be honest.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll see many more young talents coming into Watford, because Watford's new sporting director, he's been pictured at the London Coney training ground within the last couple of days with his team around him. And it looks like he's brought his scouting network with him from Frankfurt as well. And you've mentioned already, Mike, how about they seem to buy these gem of a player for quite a low transfer fee and then make him into a star and sell him on for big bucks. And that's what Watford are a selling club, and they've always been known for that. But I think he's going to tap into his network and get these stars that have helped Frankfurt get to the Europa League final last year, win it against Rangers, and attract those to Watford. And like you say, Mike, Watford being based just outside London is a much better attractive offer. Like, I think Kone was linked with the likes of like Norwich and Sheffield United as well. But when the side's closer to London, there is a bigger pull, isn't it? Because he can go out and socialise in London. He wouldn't be socialising around the Steel City of Sheffield or over in Norwich. And I was in the tractor fields and all that. But it's, yeah, I'm interested to see what we actually do within the next couple of transfer windows. I think we're going to see some big moves for Watford now, especially if the talks of the investment, like that's gone quiet lately, but it's probably gone quiet because they're working behind the scenes to get something done. But if the investment comes in, I know it's only a small percentage, but that would help the transfer budget as well. So it'd be interesting to see what Watford actually do. But last Saturday, Mike, Watford beat Arsenal 4-2. at the Gunners training ground in London Colony, just over the fence, like we all know. Keena Davis got a brace. Yasser Espria and João Pedro was also amongst the goals. But Arsenal played not the fully strength team, because obviously lots of their players are away at the World Cup at the moment, but it was still lots of first team players amongst the team, and they changed it around at half time, and that's when Watford got the goals in the second half, really, because they made those changes and the under 20s came on under 18s. But it's good for the confidence still for Watford. But the main thing I took out of that result, Mike, I know results mean nothing, and friendlies is all about building up fitness and working on stuff. Jeremy Ngakia started the game and got 60 minutes in his belt. That's massive for him, isn't he? Considering he's just came back from injury. And he said in an interview with Andrew French last week that Watford fans haven't seen the best of him yet. And he is eager to show Watford fans what he can actually do. But there's no better way of starting than doing 60 minutes against Arsenal in a pre-season friendly, is there?
No, and he'll be delighted that he's back, and he's got a lot of people to prove. I don't want to say wrong, but he's got a point to prove. You know, he's been out injured. We were raving about him. You know, last time we were in the Championship about how good he started in the season. Didn't get his chance in the Premier League, and when he did, he struggled. So, you know, he'll be wanting to come in and hit the ground running, especially now that Gosling is injured for the foreseeable future. You know, we've not heard any more about that, but he's not going to be coming back next week. Let's put it that way. And I'm sure Bilic won't want to be playing Cathcart at right back if he can help it. You know, we have got Gaspar as an option, but it is the fact that he is, you know, as old as he is, you know, you would expect Bilic to start Ngakia over him. So Ngakia's he's got a lot going for him in that regard, and he'll want to hit the ground running, and he'll after that interview he'll want to back up what he said, because you know there's nothing worse as a footballer. You can say all the right things, but if you don't go out and show it, then it means diddly squat, to be quite frank. So yeah, I'm looking forward to his return, and you know 60 minutes in that game, could that mean we see him against Hull? Could it be too soon? I don't know. I know we've got Huddersfield coming up as well. But, you know, even if he manages to get on the bench against Hull, you know, that will be at least a start. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him back, Ben. I was really impressed with him last time out in the Championship.
It'll be interesting to see if he does play against Hull or is on the bench, because Hull was linked with a move with him back in the summer. So they'll be probably keeping a close eye on him and keeping eyes on how his career progresses at Watford. Because I'm sure Liam Rossini would probably like a player like Jeremy Ngakia into the side. I just think he can offer Watford something slightly different from what we've had recently. Obviously, Gosling doesn't bomb forward, nor does Mari Gaspar. So I'm hoping that he can help out in the attacking sense on that right-hand side for Watford. But who will know what that starting 11 will be on Sunday when we face Hull City. But also a guy who got 20 minutes at the weekend, Mike, was 17-year-old Adrian Blake. He got 20 minutes into his legs. A host of Premier League sides that eyeing up a move for him. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, but supposedly he has been offered a new deal at the Hornets. So we'll have to watch his space to see whether he signs it or not. But he also scored a hat-trick for the under-21s a week ago in their 4-3 victory over West Bromwich Albion. Is he someone that is he maybe the next big thing to come through the academy for Watford? Because I know there was talks of other players who like Shaq Ford. Shaq Ford, we've not heard anything really about him this season. I don't know if he's injured. He's definitely not gone out on loan, but it's gone quiet on that front. And I think Watford were having a lot of hopes on him, and I think Scott Dutchbury said that he would be in and around the first team when they had those secret meetings back in last March. But I think Adrian Blake's probably that next one for Watford fans, isn't it, to keep a close eye on, because he's someone who can break into the team. And I think did he feature against Leicester City in that FA Cup game last year, Mike?
I'm not sure if he featured in that game. A lot of youth prospects did. I think Shaq Ford was on the bench. I think Shaq Ford actually come on against Leicester last season. But like I said earlier, Ben, you know, we used to be that club that any chance we could get an academy product to come through, they would come through. Didn't necessarily mean that they were good. You look at the likes of your Matty Witchelows, he didn't exactly set the world alight. Ross Jenkins, not that one, the other one. He was, someone that come through as well. Sean Murray, the list goes on. So hopefully he is. I saw Fabrizio Romano report that Premier League clubs are sniffing around him and he's only got 1 year left and Watford are going to offer him a contract. And I hope we do. And why can't we stick him on the bench? That's what does my head in, stick him on the bench for a game. If we're winning comfortably, bring him on for a few minutes at the ends. And, you're not going to pin all your hopes on him and say we need a goal and you look to him on the bench. You're not going to say, right, go on, kid, on you go, get us a winning goal. That would put a world of pressure on him. I know, he's a footballer at the end of the day, so you have to expect that. But I'd at least like to think that, if we're sort of cruising in a game a little bit, give him 10, 20 minutes in the legs and let him show us what he can do. And, it's those little bench appearances is how you ease your way into the first team more and more. So I really hope that he does come through and I really hope that we do offer him a new contract and that we see him in the squad before the end of the season, because it sounds like he could be the one. I think, like you alluded to there, we were sort of sold that dream a bit. We were led down the garden path a little bit in the respect of Shaq Ford was going to be the same, and it hasn't quite worked out. I believe he's injured though. I don't know if he's back or any details on the injury, but it hasn't quite come to fruition what people were saying about him. So, yeah, hopefully Adrian Blake is the next big thing, if you like, to come through the academy, and it won't be long until he features in the squad, because Championship's a long old season, as we know, and any depth we can get in any position will be welcomed with open arms.
Yeah, I was wrong about the Leicester City one as well. He didn't make his debut for Watford in that. He actually came off the bench in the EFL Cup this season and played 17 minutes. So he has made his competitive debut for Watford. But it'd be interesting to see what happens for the rest of the season. He's heavily involved with the under-21s and plays week in, week out for them. So, and obviously got that hat-trick last week, which will help out with his confidence. But yeah, like I say, this Sunday, Mike, we've got Hull City at home. We've not played Hull for a very long time in the Championship. It's been about 7-8 years because we was in the Premier League. I think last time we actually played them was actually in the Premier League, and we lost. And I think 2-0. And I think they had Marco Silva at that point.
They went down that season, but they still beat us.
Yeah, they beat us 2-0 at the KC, and I think we beat them 1-0 at home that season with a Michael Dawson own goal. So it's been a long time since we played them. But they've got a new manager at the helm. They've got Liam Rosinia. He was appointed Hull City manager on the 3rd of November. He's already taken charge of 3 matches, winning 1, drawing 1, and also losing 1. The last time they played was against Reading, and they lost that 2-1 at home after conceding a last-minute goal from Andy Carroll. Hull have a decent away record, though. In their last 6 games away from home, they've won 3, drawn 1, lost 2. So they're difficult on the road in their last 6 games. So I don't think it's going to be as easy as Watford fans might allude to. Their main threat is Oscar Estepinian. They signed the striker in the summer on a free transfer, and the Colombian has scored 8 goals already this season. And who could forget, they've also got the Turkish Paul Pogba, Ozan Tufan. He returns back to Vicarage Road this weekend, and he's also got 3 goals this season. God knows how he's actually found the back of the net, and the balls haven't ended up to Rose Z, but he has scored 3 goals this season. But Mike, it's going to be a difficult game, isn't it? I think Liam Rosinia, it's a decent appointment. He did well at Derby County. He was supposedly the brains behind Wayne Rooney, wasn't he, when they had that transfer embargo? They was getting through all the youngsters, and he was like the brains behind it all. But do you think he would do a decent job with Hull City and steer them away from relegation? Because I think that's why they made that change, wasn't it? Because they was getting a bit close to that relegation fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think opposite. I don't think it's a good appointment for them at all. He,
Alright.
as you say, he was with Wayne Rooney at Derby, and then Rooney left, and he was sort of left in temporary charge, and they didn't really get round to appointing an official manager until Paul Warne a couple of months ago. And it was a bit weird, usually when you've got an interim manager, you're on the lookout, but they didn't seem in any rush. They obviously had a lot of faith in Rossignol, and like you said, there were rumours that he was the brains behind Wayne Rooney at Derby. He obviously did very well. If it wasn't for the points deduction, I think they would have stayed up. But I don't think it quite worked out to plan for Liam Rossignol this season for Derby. Considering the squad that they have in League One, I think they're expected to be, running away with that league. And I'm sure Derby fans will disagree. But it's quite interesting that they've gone for him. And I think of Watford Hull games, and the two that I think back to are, well, the three is the 1-0 win under Zola. I went up to that game, and Troy Deeney scored. I think Jonathan Bond was in goal, and he had an absolute brilliant game for us. He was pulling out
Was that the
saves left, right,
midweek game?
midweek game, yeah. And Hull were going for the playoffs with us that season. Obviously ended going up because of the whole stuff on the last day against Leeds, etc. And then the other results is the playoffs, where they absolutely battered us on aggregate. I think it was like 6-2. And I think Danny Shittu had a goal disallowed in the home leg. The home leg was first, because I remember going to that, because that was on a weekend. And then the away leg was midweek, and my dad didn't let me go because I had school the next day. And they absolutely battered us. So, mixed emotions when it comes to Hull. I mean, in the last 5 games, they've picked up 4 points. So, but as we know, in the Championship, you can't underestimate anyone. We do look better at home, so I am a little bit more confident that we're playing at home. It's going to be, it's not going to be a great watch for anyone going. You've got to remember that these guys have just had however many weeks off for the World Cup, so the football's not going to be as fluid, which means there are more opportunities for the teams, and sort of form does go out the window a little bit. And yeah, but I think because we're at home, I like to think that we can get the job done, and it would set us up nicely coming back from the mid-season break. So I'm going to be confident then. I'm going to be 2-0 to Watford, I'm going to say.
Okay, yeah. So Watford are actually 4th in the form table for home games this season as well. So we do have a decent record at home, and we are slowly improving our away record as well, which has kept us higher up in the table. But yeah, at home, I'm quietly confident. I think we got enough in it to get the 3 points. I just think, like you say, they've had a couple of weeks off now. I don't think the intensity is going to be there. The tempo of playing back-to-back games, it's going to be missing, isn't it? So I think it might be a bit of a slow game. It might have a bit of a feel of like a pre-season game, start feeling each other out, and then it might up its tempo. But yeah, I'm confident. I'll probably go for a 2-0 Watford win as well. I was just trying to think, have I been to Hull as well? I think I went to Hull, and we drew 0-0, and I think we didn't even have a shot on goal that game.
I know
And I
that way
stayed
to
up.
Hull and drew 0-0.
Well, luckily it wasn't a day trip. I got the train up on a Friday night, and one of my friends went to uni in Hull, so we stayed in his place, so we didn't have to pay for accommodations or anything. And we went out Friday night in Hull, and it's true what I say about Hull. Hull is a shithole. It's not the nicest of places. It's a bit grim, and I think it was about November time when I went, so it was absolutely freezing cold. And we came back on a Sunday, and so we did 2 nights out in Hull, but it was just awful. It was one of the worst weekends I've ever had. But yeah, luckily I've ticked that one off, so I won't be going up to Hull anytime soon. But I bet you're looking forward to seeing Ozan Tufan this weekend. Do you think he's going to get good reception from Watford fans?
No, not at all. But I tell you what, I do think will happen. He'll have an absolute brilliant game against us, because that's how the world works. You hate a player when he's at the club. He does shit for us. But when he returns with a different club, he will absolutely rip it apart. I mean, to be fair, from what I've read on Twitter, I think, and I'm sure Hull fans, if they do come across this podcast somehow or clip or whatever, um, they may disagree, but it looks to be a real split between the Hull fans. Some think he's brilliant, but other fans think he's lazy and he's shit, pretty much like we did. He has been, well, I say he's been scoring. He's got 3 goals, as you mentioned. Whether that's the system that they play, whether he plays a little bit different to how he played at Watford, but you just know he's got to have a brilliant game against us. But I like to think that the lads have seen him enough in training. They know how to press him, what his weaknesses are. That can play into our hands a little bit. And I like to think, having someone like Hamza running at you like that and closing them down will play into our hands a little bit, because he was lazy for us and there was no work rate at all. So hopefully the midfield battle wins that. It's Oscar Estupiñán that I'm worried about. I sold him on Football Manager for Coventry City, and he's been bagging goals for fun for me on that. So it's he looks a real good player. He's come over from the Portuguese league and he scored goals there as well. So we need to keep him quiet. Absolutely.
Yeah, that Oscar Estupiñán or whatever his name is. I think he started the season really well, didn't he? I think he scored like 5 and 5 or something, and then it tailed off. I don't know if the managerial change came into that as well, but I think his form's been struggling of late, and I will take that because he is a decent guy, and I think he scored 2 or 3 at West Brom away as well this season, and he just looked class for Hull. But Hull, I think they're a bit of a hit miss team, aren't they? I think they can score goals, but they can also ship loads of goals as well. Defensively, they look poor. So I think you're either going to get a Hull turn up and they're going to turn it on and score lots of goals, or they're just going to ship 4 or 5 goals. I think they're very inconsistent, aren't they? And they're either going to be a team that, if it clicks, they'll probably push on to top 10, or if it goes wrong, they'll get relegated. They're just one of those sides, aren't they? Because I think they got taken over by Turkish owners last season. They brought a lot of Turkish players into the side, and this is where the Ozan Tufan's transfer came from. And then the Turkish owners they're just bringing in the players that they know from their league. But we've all said that you need time to adapt to this league, and I don't think half their players have maybe hit that level yet. So it'll be interesting to see how they actually perform this weekend. But yeah,
Hull have conceded the most in the league as well. They've conceded 39 goals, and even Huddersfield, who are bottom, haven't conceded that many. But they have then gone and scored 25 goals. We've only scored 3 more goals than 25. So, like you said, it depends what Hull turn up, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm confident of us scoring goals at home. You've obviously got Keenan Davis. He's just scored 3 goals in 2 weeks in pre-season. He scored against Blackpool in our 1-1 draw. He scored 2 against Arsenal. So he'll be round to go, and he loves scoring goals at the Vic as well. You've got João Pedro, who scored against Arsenal. He was involved in 3 goals against Arsenal. Actually, he created one of the chances for Keenan Davis, and then set up Yasser Esprit as well before then Joe scoring a goal. So he's going to be bang on it as well. We're unsure whether Ismail Assar will be involved or not. I think he might be given a rest. There's been no footage of him returning back to the training ground, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's been given a week or 2 off just to recharge his batteries, because it was an intense environment, the World Cup. He went straight in, didn't he? I think he was training for a week before the tournament. Then he's played 4 or 5 games out there, pretty much 90 minutes all the time. So I think they need to rest him. And I don't blame him. But I still think we've got enough in the side to get the 3 points without Ismail Assar. And then you've got Ken Demo, who can pop up with goals when required as well, and Vacuum Bio off the bench. What kind of... We'll wrap it up in a set, but what kind of starting 11 would you go for against Hull? Obviously, just before they went on the World Cup break, we saw that Daniel Batman potentially picked up a little injury playing for Austria. But then he was pictured in training for Watford and in some videos training as well. And I don't think he didn't. I don't think he played against Arsenal. So I'm not sure whether
he did play against Arsenal.
He did. It was a Coy he didn't play, wasn't it? And Ben Hamer got the second half. Obviously Dan Batman, we've got nothing to worry about Ben because his injury in the international break, it wasn't as bad as everyone first feared. So obviously Dan Batman in goal. Who would you go over at right back?
I mean, I think bearing in mind Jeremy's only got 60 minutes against Arsenal, I would probably just play it safe and put either Gaspar or Cathcart there, because I'd imagine he's going to play Kabasele and possibly Troost-Ekong, because I think Kabasele's played in both friendlies. I hope I'm wrong. I'd rather go Troost-Ekong and Sierralta, but I don't know if Sierralta's injured or not. Either Cathcart or Gaspar for me at right back.
Left back.
Left back. Who? Sorry.
Kamara.
Yeah, Kamara, 100%. Yeah.
So your centre backs, you said it would be Kabasele and Troost-Ekong.
I think he's going to go Kabasele and Troost, but I personally would go for Troost and Sierralta, providing that Sierralta isn't injured.
Cathcart played against Arsenal, so I think he's fully fit again. So maybe we might see Cathcart and Troost.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that.
He captained the side, and then. So let's just talk about the team against Arsenal quickly. It was the team that started. It was Daniel Batman in goal. Gaku was right back. Kamara left back. Kabasele and Cathcart centre backs, and then you had Chowdhury in the middle with Asprilla and Kayembe, and then you had João Pedro, Sema, and Davis.
So he pushed Pedro out wide, well, which is what I was thinking he'd do.
Yeah, so potentially João could be over on that left-hand side then. If he's going to stick to those inverted wingers, which we've seen him implement at West Brom, and we've seen him start to do at Watford. So maybe he will keep Sema over on the right-hand side and João Pedro on the left, and it's just going to be interesting to see what happens, isn't it? And then coming off the bench, Sierralta came on at half-time, so he is back from injury. Hungbo came on as well. Matty Pollock came on. Bakumbayo, Morris, Blake, Troost-Ekong, and Gaspar came on. So I think this international break came at the right time then, because there's lots of people who were maybe on the edge of injury. We was waiting for him to come back, but we've seen him come back now. We've seen Ngaku come back. Craig Cathcart played the other day. Sierralta was involved as well. So that squad depth is filling back up for Watford.
Yeah, and some people would have been discussing on podcasts up and down the country for their club, has the break come at the right time for us? And I think for Watford fans, it definitely has. We've been struggling with a lot of injuries recently, and perhaps players were playing on the brink of an injury. So yeah, I think this break's come at a good time, and hopefully now we can start getting our best squad back together. And believe me, the manager will be, it's going to sound really obvious, but it's a lot easier it's actually a lot harder for the manager, but it's a bit more of a relief for the manager when he's got a fully fit squad available to him. And I can't wait for that day when we've got a fully fit squad available to us. And I think the options that you've just said there against Arsenal, good enough to beat anyone on their day. So I think it'll be really interesting to see that starting 11 on Sunday, because it really could be either, anyone could play.
Yeah, well, we're back in action Sunday, 3:00 against Hull City, and the game's come quick and fast as well. We've got Hull at home. Then on the 17th, we're away to Huddersfield Town. On the 26th, Boxing Day, we're back at home to Millwall. Then on the 30th of December, away to Swansea City. And then the first game in the new year is away to Norwich City on January the 2nd. So the games are going to come quick and fast now. We've had a 3-4 week break from Championship action, but we're going to be thrown straight back into it. And there's no, I wouldn't have wanted it any different. I'm really looking forward to this. Running around Christmas, Mike's always a bit special, isn't it? And especially the Boxing Day fixtures. I just can't wait.
Yeah, like you say, thick and fast, just what you want. If you've been missing your domestic football with the World Cup on, and these are the games that count now. You know, if you can pick up these, points on the road, or obviously you want 3 points, but these are where those points. Say you pick up a point away at Norwich or pick up a point away at Swansea, you look back on this and you think that point at Swansea, that point at Norwich, that was vital, that was. So I'm looking forward to it. I think we're on TV a couple of times as well in those games that you've mentioned. So even better, gives me an excuse to get down a boozer and watch a game. But it obviously makes it better for me. Obviously managing on a Saturday, I get to watch the games that are on TV and the midweek games. So I'm looking forward to diving straight back into it. And I love the Christmas period anyway. And hopefully, if we have time, we can maybe do a Christmas special like we have done the last couple of years. But I'm looking forward to this Christmas period.
Yeah, likewise, mate. And I'm sure we will do a Christmas special like we do, and we have done for the last 3 seasons, I think. So yeah, watch your space. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching tonight. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like the video. Me and Mike will probably be back Monday evening to do a review of the Hull City game. Hopefully it's about 3 points at Vicarage Road. Hopefully it's about Ozan Tufan being sent off or something silly like that, instead of talking about him scoring a 40-yard screamer in the top bin. But yeah, we'll be back on Monday evening. Stay safe, everyone, and come on, you Horns.